Hello, Daniela. Welcome to the Women Waken podcast.
Hi, Whitney. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for being on and coming to speak with us and share with us your unique line of work that I got to learn about just a few weeks ago. We got connected and we jumped on a call. And Daniela, you were very helpful because you are a spiritual entrepreneur, right? So you're really helping leaders to move into a state of ease and joy and passion in their work. So from what you told me, it sounds like you help people move from this like constant like fighting, like sort of that rigorous, trying to like force your way through the drudgery and, the challenges of life and feeling like everything is meant to be hard, to this sense of ease where you're in the flow. And to me, that means you found sort of your soul's path or your calling, like what you're inherently meant to be doing in this lifetime.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it was so great to talk to you because you also have a keen understanding of spiritual awakenings, because it sounds like that's what happened for you to lead you into this line of work, because I believe that you were actually one of those sort of more corporate sort of grinders before you got into this, right?
Yes, I was.
If that's the best term, a corporate grinder, but that's what it is.
Yeah,
right?
I was.
So many of us just like, let's just plow through and make that money and hustle. But, and one of your points is that life isn't meant to be about being anxious and stressed and just working all the time. It's not.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah. And that when we find out and remember who we really are, we can let go of that and we can still have success, right? It's not about not having success or not bringing something into the world that can be abundant and successful. It's just that it doesn't have to be like this really narrow, rigid mindset about it. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to help us talk about that. But what I was going to say is that it was so lovely speaking with you because I've been going through a unique spiritual awakening in the past year. And it led me to getting really sick, which again is a part of your journey as well. Was you got really sick before this sort of a transformation for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. And so you were right. I was one of those high achievers, and what I call my past life, this lifetime, but my old life, high achiever, go. I was completely in the mind, thinking that this is what I was supposed to be doing. The working hard, the stress, the working and living on autopilot, and really just a lot of responsibilities and a lot of work. I lived for the weekend. I was exhausted then because then I had, still have, I'm a mom, taking care of kids, household. So it was never ending. And yeah, I would say I had like two kind of like aha moments or breakthroughs or switching timelines, I would call it. Periods. And the first one was when I got really sick because my immune system was like, yeah, we are not doing this anymore. And it just completely gave up. And that was, and I was pregnant with my third kid at that moment. So that was a very scary because I wasn't alone. And so that was kind of, that started, it got me to the point where I started thinking, because we don't think. I was not thinking until then. And as a matter of fact, when I got better, because what happened was that I was 8 months pregnant. My husband had to rush me to the hospital. Everything was beeping. Everything was kind of not good. And anyway, when I got better, and then I went to my doctor who delivered my two previous children, girls, he looked at me and he was like, "What were you thinking?" And I was like, "What? What? What were you thinking?" And he was like, "Why did not you take care of yourself? You have two kids at home. You're pregnant with your third child, and you got pneumonia and flu type B. And pregnant women die on our table with flu. And he said, you were lucky, because if you got flu type A, we would not have saved you. So what were you thinking? Why were you not taking care of yourself? And my first reaction was really, because, we are kind of programmed that when something bad is happening, or we go through tough times, people should pity us, should be compassionate. And he was not. Then later I learned he was very compassionate, because he just kind of put a mirror in front of my face. So anyway, I was driving home crying, like, who was he? How he dares talking to me like that? I almost died, and now he was telling me this. And then I was like, hold on, I was not thinking. My whole life I was not thinking. And that got me thinking, like, okay, what am I doing here? And not here in the car driving, but here on this earth. And this cannot be why we are here. So that was the first thing. And then it kind of started the urge and need and the desire to remember who I was and why I am here. Not what I am supposed to do. That was not the question. It was more about like who I am. I wanted to remember who I am, beyond the body, beyond the mind. And so that happened a few years later, that kind of those questions and the urge to find out who I am. I did not really do anything to any rituals or something. I just got several involuntary spiritual, you can call it spiritual experiences, out of body experience, astral travel, experiencing myself as a pure consciousness in the moment, collapsing of the mind into the black hole. There is a black hole in the middle of everything that's conscious. And when the mind ceases to exist, it collapses into it. Like that was a profound experience. And then really with trial and error, I kind of like, it was like building a puzzle, a piece by piece, I built a puzzle. My spiritual gift got very activated. Psychic gifts, I started knowing things. So I completely stopped reading. My whole life, I was bookworm. I was like reading books and knowledge, information. I haven't read book in, I don't know how, I just know things. So I don't need data. Some people call it Akashic records, or we call it quantum, and we are it. It's not separate from us. So so really my journey was that first I started helping women with their severe anxiety, depression, and panic attacks, because that's what I helped myself with. And I was able to get them off prescriptions in like 8 weeks, even though the doctors told them, yeah, there is nothing you can do. They were on 4 or 5 prescriptions and for years. And then later on, I moved to what I do now, which I really love. And it's activating and integrating a higher consciousness in very talented leaders, gifted executives, entrepreneurs, many times coaches, high-performing coaches who have other people, or who actually teach coaches. And, so they have a huge impact, but they themselves do the work and hustle. And I help them to shift into the life of ease. And it's really living and creating by being and not by doing, which is when some people call flow, but it's like we are life, and every action we take, it's with minimal effort. It's literally effortless, and it gives us huge impact, huge results. So when you mention that, it's funny because you mentioned that, and to have an ease and joy, but also to create or have success, this is where a lot of people have this, and it's a conditioning. It's like we need to sacrifice the ease and joy and fun for success. So we have to like choose one of another. And that's a completely mind stuff, because we are not human doings, we are human beings, and we can have ease, joy, success in one package.
Yeah, definitely. And I just appreciate that sentiment so much, because when I have visions of the future, I see a place, a world where it's sort of known. It's an understanding that that's what is, rather than having to try and like force that notion or to create that notion. It's just because to me, that's what happens when you just kind of let go, right? When you let go of these different, like you said, belief systems about like that we are the body, that we are our mind, because those concepts only live in the mind.
Yeah.
Right. They only do.
Yeah.
We created them there. And as soon as we shift our belief around that, everything changes. And we are able to recognize what is true, which is that joy and peace and ease are what matters most. It's essential to who we are.
Yeah, it what matters most. You're absolutely right. And I would add, the reason why it is what matters most is not just a cliche. It's because it's it's our natural frequency.
Yes.
So when we do not live in the joy and ease and fun, we are living in the mind, and we are contradicting our natural frequency, and we attract and live really just from the mind. And then it's a hard work, and then it's a hustle, and then it's a struggle and forcing, and we need to motivate ourselves.
Yes. And then we get sick, and then we get depressed, we get anxious, we become angry and resentful and violent. I feel like many of the conditions of our society that ail us, that keep us so unhappy, are because of exactly what you're describing. Because if anything is at a frequency that's not aligned with their natural state, it's going to feel forced and uncomfortable. And I feel most of us are uncomfortable because again, because we fight just our natural state. We fight doing the things that bring us joy, because we have this mentality of who has time for joy? Who has time for happiness? Yeah. There's no time for that. We got to be doing this. We got to be innovating. And I will say, and I don't know if you're aligned with this at all, but having Women Wake In as the name of my podcast and my vision and my community, is that it's a very, it's a masculine energy to be focused just on growth and innovation and production and power and profit, right? Which there's a place for that, right? But what I think we've lost touch with is that you can still, again, do those things in a harmonious way by being in a state of ease and joy, by doing the things that come naturally to us. Because even when we're at our ease and joy state, we can still produce, we can still make beautiful creations.
Yeah. Yes. And this is, yes, and absolutely. And I would probably move or shift from the gender based, like that, the masculine and feminine, because for the consciousness, there is no gender. We have both, there is both polarities within us. And I absolutely agree. You're right. We've been experiencing this force and power and like it's a lot of pushing through, right? The natural state embodies both. So we cannot be feminine without the masculine. There cannot be masculine without the feminine, as much as there is wounded feminine. So wounded women out there, they are too much in their masculinity. That was me, high achiever, go, stress. There is also wounded masculine or men who are actually very, even though they use force and power, it's really just on the outside because they are wounded, and it's really just the protection. So we need to balance both. But in our natural state, as I said, like the consciousness, we embody both. And how it looks like when we live in our natural state or operate from our natural state, it's not separate. It's not like I am now not doing anything and now I'm working. It's really this harmonious union of I am being, and from that being, from that complete let go, beingness, and effortlessness, I take action. That action is never forced. That action is so powerful that it produces huge amounts. And so it's really, when we talk about union, it's really a union of those two. It's never, I am either now in my feminine and I am walking, dreaming, not doing anything, or I am in my masculine because now I sit in front of my computer and work. It's blended. And that's our natural state.
Yeah,
And
of course. Of course. It's always, I mean, it's the yin and the yang. It's the combination. And
yes.
and I, you know, it's a popular phrase is the divine feminine, but I think it's just so that it's just a name for something that we do find the occurrence of on our planet. There are there's male and females, right? And that they tend to embody certain traits. And so I think it's just a way of identifying these two energies that we find that exist, and we do our best to sort of understand them. And that's one way to label them, is to see that one is we call masculine, one feminine, but you can call it whatever you want. I mean, it really is just, you know, the energies of what is makes up our being in our life. And I, you know, to what you're saying is it's never one or the other. You know, there's a lot of different analogies that I like for this concept. One of them is sort of like a bird, that it's like the wings of a bird, so that it's, you know, you could call it the masculine and feminine. So there's a balance. So to, you know, again, to your point, you can't just have all one or the other. And I use the term masculine and feminine because it allows for a little bit of tangible understanding of what shifts can happen. Because when we think of, okay, if we feel like we live in a more masculine driven world, it is because it's more production based, and we're a little bit less focused. There's a lack of presence from what we would call the feminine energy, which is that which understands the importance of things like ease and being within your true essence and balance and harmony. And so I like to use the analogy of the root system. If you see, the feminine is just like the rooting that keeps us grounded, and the masculine is the beautiful growth that's possible when we have a healthy foundation of groundedness and root systems.
Yes,
but we're neglecting
analogy.
that. Yeah. But we're neglecting that, and we're seeing the repercussions, which is the growth we have is often very sick. Like you and I, you know, again, when we spoke last, I was, you know, I've been sick this year, and it's really taken me by surprise. I didn't expect it, just like you. And sometimes I feel like it's our bodies trying to communicate with us when we're trying to not listen to our bodies. Right.
It's always like that. Yeah. It's always, it's always whether it's a mental illness, whether it's a physical illness, emotional, it's always our bodies communicating. It's like literally like in a car, you have the empty gas tank, you know, signal. It's a signal to stop and really kind of like think, okay, things cannot continue this way. Or if I continue doing what I've been doing, things will go worse, right? I need to change something. And and it focuses us, or it pushes us to switch the focus into a different direction. So absolutely.
Yes, exactly. And could you speak a little bit, Daniela, to how this relates to a spiritual awakening? Because sort of my understanding is that spiritual awakenings happen in all different degrees and forms and many different times throughout our life. But it seems like it is that time where it's almost like this gentle calling that's trying to remind us that maybe we've drifted a bit from who we really are, and that we're going so far that we are becoming sick and not aligned with our true sort of purpose and being, and that we're living a life that maybe has no actual meaning or value to us, but we don't realize it because we're so stuck in that, you know, mindset of our mind and our body, which is, this is what I have to do. I have to do this because that's what you do. You get a job, you work really hard, you need to be successful, you need to pay the bills. And we've lost touch with our true essence. So, you know, and for my recent spiritual awakening, it was a lot of things that I didn't want to go through it. Like it was a lot of old, emotional upheaval that came up because it was like I was trying to just keep running and not deal with things. So it was like spirit kind of had to guide me and help me remember what's true. So I guess what I'm getting to is it seems like a spiritual awakening happens when to bring you back to what's true.
Yes. Yes. That's very beautiful said. It is to bring you back to the truth. It is to bring you back to the truth. How I sometimes call it, it's really when our soul decides not to play this type of game anymore. Yeah. It's like, and I truly believe that we pre-planning on some level. And when we got to the point that we cannot take it anymore, it's where, and we are willing to change. We are willing to change because we, and it may, on a physical level, it may look like or come in any form. It may be in a form of illness, mental, physical. It may exhaustion, divorce, death of a loved one, relationship, sometimes twin flame relationship, like any which seems to be kind of like a negative, because there is a lot of turmoil involved, a lot of crashing, a lot of negative emotions, a lot of resistance to what is. Like, it's like, I cannot take this anymore. A lot of emotions, mental patterns. Then when we are open and we are ready to shift, then the spiritual awakening happens and we are moved into the different direction. And that's where literally us, because there are people around us, coaches, books, to direct us onto the right path, or to direct us to the truth. That's what, in my case, like when I really wanted to remember who I was, things just started happening so fast. I did not need to do research. Things started coming to me. People would say something that from a normal perspective was just a sentence. And I was like, what? And I had to be with that sentence for, like, it meant so much for me. And that's why it was like creating the puzzle. So we go through it. I believe all your listeners are somewhere in that journey, some at the beginning, some maybe a little bit further ahead. It's a journey for all of us. But it is really, because whatever we've been doing doesn't serve us. It doesn't work. Whether we take it on a personal level, illnesses, divorces, anxiety in kids, anxiety, depression in adults, you go there, addictions, or whether we take it and look at it from the global level, wars, terror, any negative events, environmental issues, like anything, it does not serve us, because we are truly living just from the mind. Yes. And we are basically going against ourselves. We are going against our true nature. And that's a kind of lesson for us.
Yeah. And then I think that pretty much sums up 2020 so far as a decade. And so it's like, so, there's the micro and the macro. So it's as if on a macro level, our world is having a spiritual awakening. That's why these things we're at war right now. We just went through a pandemic. We're having a crisis with the climate, everything. It's fine. It's being put right in our faces that what we are doing is not working. It's not serving us. It's not sustainable. And we need to wake up and recognize that we feel like we need to keep going every day. But if we do, we're going off the cliff.
Yes.
If we don't.
Yes. And whether it's on a personal or on a mass or global level, the message is one. The message is really very simple. It's to remember who we are. To remember that we do not create with action. To remember that we don't create with force. We will, and we cannot create from fear. and any creation, any action taken from the place of fear. And right now, people, probably 90% more, 95% of people do take action from fear. Even going daily to a job you hate, it's an action from fear that will have a negative impact in your life sooner or later. So it goes very deep. It's really remembering who we are. We are a multidimensional beings. We are very, very powerful beings, energetic beings, and we forgot who we are, and we are literally playing a game, not remembering, and it doesn't serve us. That's not how we create. So this is when we shift into the higher consciousness, we realize who we are, and then it's a different, because we look at the world, it's like, what are you doing? That's not the way. Why are you so rushing? Like, no, we create with energy, not with action. We don't need to do anything. It's a concept that mind doesn't understand. It's like, no, hold on, we need to take action. No, you are action. You're walking through from kitchen to bedroom or outside is an action. That's enough. That's self-sufficient. So it's not about not doing anything and just sitting. It's living. It's fully living. And you are the force. When you fully live, you create. But you don't create with planning. Oh, I have this to-do list and I need to do this task, or I need to do these things to create a goal, or to create revenue, or to make profit. That's a completely mind stuff. Yeah. The profit, the money, everything happens naturally from your being. So the truth is, really, it's like everything is switching or shifting us to remembering who we are, and that's not how we do things. How we've been living for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. And it does seem there's this awareness coming back. And I think more people are asking, do we have to live this way? And why do we live this way? Because as you spoke to, we have this idea that we have to work these jobs that we may not like to finance for our family and take care. And just all these, like, it's these rules and these concepts that we created, and as you spoke of force, we sort of force these certain ideas into like what life looks like, but life is energy. It doesn't have to take any specific form. We've put it into this very particular format where you're born and you go to school and you're supposed to get educated and you're supposed to get married. And we created that. And it's fine. It's all a game, right? Ultimately, life is just a game. So we've made a game, but maybe it's time to ask, do we want to keep playing this game? Because it's not so much fun for most people. Like, we're not having a great time.
Yes. And this is exactly how I explain it, that it's literally like playing a Monopoly. So when you have a Monopoly, you have or any other board game, you have a board, you have the characters, you have rules, you have sets of rules, you have implications, what happens when something happens, and stuff like that. And you play the game within that board. And we kind of forgot that we actually designed the game, and we designed the rules, and then we actually can completely change the game. We cannot see that when we are in the lower consciousness. When we live from the mind, life is so serious that it doesn't even cross our mind. When we awaken, when we go through the ascension, when we really are in the high consciousness, then, which is the consciousness of our true self, it's like, yeah, I can shift, and we can shift every day. Like, we can literally shift every day, and we can move and experience any experience we want to, because the board is just the board. We can just switch it. So they're kind of like to really understand the concept, as I when I work with my clients, and when I talk to people, that's how I explain it. Like, there are literally two states. It's a state of the human self that is completely conditioned and living from the mind, which life is a struggle. This is what it is. It's like, I was born, I was dropped here on the earth, and these are the rules. And I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I just try my best, right? And that's not nice life. It's like, sometimes it's good when we have vacation and weekends, but most of it is struggle and pushing hard. And the other state is the higher consciousness, is the true self. It's really a complete different consciousness, because we go beyond the mind. We bypass the mind. We are no longer the mind. We no longer associated even ourselves with the mind and the body. And we see the life through, as a consciousness sees it, how the reality is really an illusion. And it's like it's really like playing with a clay and molding it any way you want. And then there is no fear, there is no struggle. You don't push against anything, because if you really know, not intellectually, not when I say, well, the reality is an illusion, right? And people are like, yeah, okay. No, that's not. When you truly know, when you have a deep knowing and you look around and like, yeah, this is not real. You know it. Mm-hmm. Why would you force yourself way through it?
Fear.
Like, no, but when you are in the higher consciousness, you never do it.
Yeah.
Because there is no fear. You're like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that stuff anymore. And you drop the conditioning, you drop the daily actions that the humans or conditioned humans do. So those are two states. And hopefully more and more people will shift to the different state and drop the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that it's pretty much inevitable, because I believe that everything always returns back to its natural true state. And we've gone very far from our normal state, which I think maybe the point of consciousness and experience is to know all aspects of ourselves, which we might call higher consciousness, the universe, God, to know every single part. So right now we're very far detached from our true essence. And sometimes you have to go all the way that far and have that full experience to finally turn around and make your way back to what's real. And to me, yes, when I say it out loud, it reminds me of on an individual level, the experience of addiction, where you think that you need something to escape, to get away from your experience, who you are, and you have to go as far as possible. You hit your bottom until you finally recognize the only way to go is back to who you are, through recovery, through turning back to your true and accepting your true self, not trying to avoid it or fight it or force something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's the same for everything. Everything is the same applies the same way for individual consciousness and the mass consciousness. Yeah. So what you just described, that we've been kind of going the wrong way, and we are going to our true selves as a society, as a humanity. And it was just an experience, like we wanted to experience ourselves, the consciousness from a different level. That's true. And it may take a few hundred years until we switch. But the same concept applies to our individual consciousness. So as I said, for the consciousness, it's really just an experience. So when people go through a hard time, struggle, illness, and divorce, anything that is perceived by the mind and the human self negative, for the consciousness is just an experience. So, and we have free will. So we can choose to have this experience, because the consciousness does not judge us. The soul or the consciousness is not like, well, yeah, let's move you here because it will be better for you. No, unless you make that choice, you're not. And you may, for the rest of your life, stay in that negative experience. And when you do the thing we call die, which is not death, actually, you will be like, oh, oh, I actually had a choice. Okay, let's do this again. So really what I'm here to say to people that, don't wait for the next lifetime. You can choose. And I know that humanity may, from what I see, may probably take 200, 300 years to really shift. But on the individual level, we can shift, and we can shift from the negative experience to positive experience, and literally change the board game, change the game very quickly. And we don't need to wait. So there are these two kind of dimensions or components, like the mass, but also individual. And we do not need to follow the mass consciousness. There is this individual consciousness, and that's our free choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So many thoughts about that. One, I just have to share. So you mentioned like it could be a few hundred years, and I've sensed that too. And I've been very drawn to the concept of the shamanic concept of 7 generations, where what we do now is for the betterment and evolution of where our society will be, where our people will be, our ancestors in 700 years, right? In 7 generations. And my prediction is that it's about like 500 years, because it was like 2 years ago when I was first kind of having my spiritual awakenings, or one of my spiritual awakenings. And I got a random text from a random number that was like this little picture that said, you will have happiness and joy and abundance and beauty. And I was like, well, that's a nice thought. And so I didn't know who it was from, but I saved it. And for some reason it saved to my phone, and it said like July 12th, 2520. Like for some reason it saved it to the year 500 years from now. And I got this sense of like, oh, that's when things are going to be very different. And maybe I'm off by a couple hundred years, but it felt very like strong. Like that's why we're doing the work now, because in 500 years, we can be living so differently in our joy, in ease, and in freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. On a mass level. Yeah. But also I want to emphasize that
people can reach that state sooner.
People can. Yeah. So it's not like, okay, I don't want people to think that or be in the state like, okay, so I'm doing this work for my future generations to save the earth. No. You came here to remember who you are, and you can completely forget about the earth and the future generations and shift now, right now. And that shift will change the future generations. This is because that feels like a lot of pressure, and that feels like a lot of responsibility. And it's like, really, that's why am I here? No, you are here to have fun. You are really here to have fun and to have joy. That state of being shifts the mass consciousness. So many times what I see, especially very highly spiritual entrepreneurs and coaches and healers, is like they want to heal the planet, and they want to, help others and shift the mass consciousness. You cannot do that, because again, by the definition, there is nothing out there. Mm-hmm. You cannot change what does not exist. You shift only you to the joy, but it really, it's pure joy of consciousness. That is what shifts the planet and the mass consciousness. You have to turn away from doing the work out there, because there is nothing out there. Yeah. Everything is just a hologram. So
matrix.
It's a fascinating concept, but we don't need to sacrifice our lives here, or we are not healing anything. We are only remembering who we are. And when we switch to the joy who we are, that's the biggest help we can give to this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, I would love to speak directly to individuals, bring it back down to the individual level. And I would like to offer, some of my experience and share a little bit more about what we spoke about, and just share in general about what the individual experience is of an awakening, of this changing, of this shifting of ourselves. Because again, I know for myself, I was very scared when it first started happening, because I see it now, but I was having to let go of what I thought was true. And to me, it felt like I was having like a mental breakdown because I was breaking down and crying. I also, when my awakening started, I became even more fixated on the things that I'd always been preoccupied with that were not real. Things like materialism, superficial things, my, looks, approval, success, all these things. I felt like I was just getting so obsessed with them. And I was like, why is this coming up now? I felt like I'd, kind of grown from this, but it was like kind of excavating the last of these false beliefs. And so I want to speak to this because I think that it's common for people who are making this shift to sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, right? Because you're I feel like you're looking right in the face, the things that the falsehoods that you've created. And it's not fun. It's actually quite unpleasant because one, you're having to let go of the things that you've created meaning with your whole life. Okay, well, if I can get approval from people, if people like me, if I'm seen a certain way, if I get success, then I'll be good, then I'll be approved of. But that's not true. We don't need anything to be perfect and unconditionally loved, right? Yeah. So letting go of those falsehoods can be, I think that's why we call it a dark night of the soul, is it's sort of recognizing, oh my gosh, everything I thought was true might not be. And it can be painful, even when we're letting go of things that cause us so much strife and misery. It's still what we knew.
Because it's the security, because again, it's the mind conditioning. We think that that's us, and we think that we need that because we've been conditioned. Like that's what my status is, what my name is, how I act, how I was thinking and feeling for, 40 years or 30 years or 50 years. That's who I am. And during the dark night of the soul, we are literally, or the soul, the consciousness, the force strips us of that. Oh, it's like, okay, you gotta just let go and drop that all. And it's very scary. And it's very scary. It's very uncomfortable. So again, it really depends where everyone is on the journey. But what you describe is the dark night of the soul. I was going through that a few years back, and it's anything but nice. It's like the death, but it's really a death. It's really a death of your mind, of the mind. It's that of yourself as a persona, as who you think you are, and only then you can be born again and remembering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember describing it when I would, call my mom and so upset and not knowing what was going on. I would say, I feel like I'm being tortured. I feel like I'm going through like mental torture, because again, I would just have all these thoughts and these fears that were just like consuming me. And I guess I want to speak to this because I didn't know what to do and I didn't know what it was. And I think, again, being a part of, this game, the illusion, we're going to gravitate towards what we're told. Oh, well, maybe you have a mental disorder. Maybe you're having, and so and if you go see a doctor, they might not know what's going on. And so they might just want to prescribe you medications. And this is not in any way to discount modern medicine. It does wonderful things, and our body does sometimes fail and we need medicine to help us. However, it's not always that. And that's what, again, you helped me with during our conversation is, things I was going through mentally and in my body were the passing. It was a death. And so my body was, I got really sick and I had these symptoms and I was in a lot of fear, but it was a mix of getting an illness, but also of this process. I had a lot of experiences like trembling in my body. I had a lot of anxiety. And again, I think most people's go-to is there's something very wrong and I need to get it fixed right now. But there is nothing wrong. It's just a lot of trusting the process. Would you say?
Yes. A lot trust in the process, and then having someone who can help with that or who've been through it. There are so many wonderful and talented coaches and healers. It really helps. I remember me, I was like just Googling stuff and thinking I'm crazy. Probably I'm crazy. Probably I am going crazy. Didn't have anyone to talk to. And I had a few friends. I had a very good friend, and but they didn't understand, right? Like, so then you kind of like don't even want to talk about it because, like, well, you cannot. I remember one phase when I was it was during the dark night of the soul, and I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
And I had such a strong feeling that this is not what it is. It's like, this is not real. I don't want to be here because this is not real. This is not. And I was on the phone with a friend, and he's like, Daniela, are you depressed? And I'm like, no, I'm not depressed. I just don't want to be here because this is not who I am. So it can really look differently for everyone. It can look like a depression. It can look like anxiety. It can look, you describe trembling. Like, it can look like spending hours in a fetal position in bed and just crying.
Yes. I've done that.
Right. Yeah. We've been through that. I've been through that. So it can look like, nevertheless, absolutely, when you have a problem, you have to go to doctor.
Yes.
But even when we take the anxiety or depression, it's that's what I was telling when I, in the past, when I worked with women with severe anxiety and severe depression, it's like, well, you're just absolutely disconnected from who you are. Yeah, you have a diagnosis. And I had someone who had 5 diagnoses: mania, depression, severe anxiety, panic attacks, and something else, like everything, for 15 years. And prescriptions, and people, the doctors tried magnetic therapy and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, you're completely in fear and disconnected from who you are. You are just, and your true system cannot take it anymore. So when you know what to do, you shift from the anxiety, you shift from the depression, and you then don't need the prescriptions. But when you're really in the mind, you need the prescriptions. Yeah. So it's really kind of like a topic really on an individual basis, right? I had someone who had depression, and they had such a huge activation and awakening that it just disappeared. And they started seeing and perceiving things differently. So some are ready, some are more ready, some are less ready. Some, even the dark night of the soul, not everybody needs to go through it for months. Sometimes it's just a quick shift. So not everyone needs to heal for 10 years. Right now, I'm working with a client who the shift is literally immediate, within a few weeks or months. So, but having someone listening to podcasts like this and understanding, like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. So what do I do? And whatever kind of like feeds your soul, whatever you gravitate to. Maybe it's a ritual you have on your podcast with me, amazing, talented, gifted healers and guests. And if it's a certain ritual, if it's a clearing chakra you gravitate to, then do that. If it's something else, then do that. Like, because we are so different.
Yes.
Right. But as you go, and then one point I want to make is that if it doesn't feel right anymore, if it's not fun anymore, drop it. Don't, because that's another side of spirituality. I've seen people for 10 years doing certain rituals just because they think that they need to do them. And this is how the mind kind of comes to us from the back door, while before the mind was telling us, you need to work, you need to work harder, you need to do this, you need to do that. Then we have awakening, and we find all these rituals and spirituality and journaling and meditating and clearing chakras. And now we spend hours and hours a day doing those activities. And again, it's the mind telling us that we are not enough and we need to evolve and we need to do those activities and continue doing them. No, we don't. Do it when it serves you, but when you feel like, well, yeah, this is not fun anymore, or I'm pushing it, then drop it, because it may be that you don't need it, because you are actually whole without any ritual. You don't need, at the end of the day, when we clear our stuff and we shift, we understand that we don't need any rituals unless we want to do it. But it's not for make us whole. It's not to become enlightened. You can be enlightened right here, right now. Yeah. So it's kind of a trick the mind plays on us. And a lot of spiritual healers or coaches fall into that trap, and then find themselves in another kind of exhaustion. It's still working, it's still doing, it's still action, but now a different kind of. But it's still never enough, because I need to go to attain certain goal, certain enlightenment, certain evolution. No, if you drop the mind, you just drop it, and you are it. You are whole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And this makes me think about the ability to listen to our intuition, to the voice within, rather than turning outward to get guidance, instruction. Those things are important because, again, Daniela, all this just reminds me about the game of life. Sometimes our souls come here and they want to take the longer, different routes. They want to find these different modalities. They want to do all this. But sometimes our soul's kind of on a fast track in this lifetime. Maybe we've lived this lifetime many times, and this time we're like, okay, I'm ready to expedite it this time. Because as you said, some people, we come into this world and we might feel this isn't real. I want to get out. So we get out. But then as soon as we get out, we remember, I chose to come here because I wanted to have a certain experience. So we come back and we remember things better. So to your point, I think that whatever's calling you, it's because that's what your path is through this lifetime. And it's different for everyone else, for every person, right?
Yes.
Different things will heal us, different things will ail us, but it's all a part of our unique path.
Yes. And everything is valid. Exactly. So
yeah,
everything is valid. I know so many gifted healers, coaches, spiritual people, and they help and they bring miracles results to their clients. And it's because their clients need them and want them, because they are on their path.
Yes.
Right. So everything is valid and everything is there for ourselves. So you listening to yourself, everyone listening to themselves is like, does this make me feel good? Or do I do it because a society, in these terms, a spiritual circle or realm or this group is telling me that I need to do it? And if you feel like it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like, if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't do it. But I'm scared that if I don't do this chakra cleaning, then I'm not going to evolve. Then drop it, because then it doesn't serve you. Then it's an action taken from the fear, right? But for someone else, that going through that experience of chakra healings, and there is a different path for everyone. So it's so important to listen. And really the question is, how does this feel for me? How does this feel for me? Not everyone gravitates to me. Like for some people, the concepts and the stuff I'm doing is like, wow, what? They are not ready for it. And that's fine. And for some people, it's like, yeah, Daniela, I know this. Like what you shared, I know it. How do I just don't know how to do it. So there is coach, book, course, everything for everyone. And you don't do what others are doing. Never, never. Even when I coach, I never tell or work with a client, I never tell them what to do. Never, ever tell them what to do. What do you want to do? And how does it feel? I, as a coach, we need to find the answers. We need just to help them, the clients, to find the answers within them. But if someone is telling you, well, you need to do this, please fire them. Just
run.
Go somewhere. Run. No, yeah. Run. If someone tells you that he is or she is the guru and she knows everything, run. Because you know everything. You might not remember, but you know.
They probably just want your money or your energy. They want to maybe exert some control, have some power over you. So yeah.
But again, it's from the fear. Even those coaches do it from the fear. I have no fear because I know who I am. And I know that, like, I don't know, people like me. Some people don't like me. Some people will end up my clients. But I had so many experiences when I just on a simple talk or just on a simple meeting, people have tremendous shift. And they said, Daniela, I don't know why, but like things shifted. And I'm like, yeah, I know why. It's an energy. It's the energy. Not everyone needs to end up like kind of work. We don't need to work together. Yeah. And, some people really work from the low consciousness as well. I need to get clients. No, that's a mind stuff. Like you're already abundant. You just need to be you. So dropping the fear. Everything is a fear. And we are not. We are completely fearless.
Yeah. So again, this brings up so many thoughts. One, it reminds me not to judge anyone's path or anyone in this world, because we don't know what their time is, what their experience they're seeking in this particular lifetime. So, and I think there can be a lot of judgment of like, oh, what is that person? They're so unevolved, or they're not doing anything with their life. But those judgments, we can't ever speak those of others because we don't know what their path is.
Yeah, that's absolutely the truth, that everyone has their own path. So we don't know. So that's first one. The other thing to know is that judgment is a mind stuff. Judgment exists only as a conditioning because consciousness doesn't judge. Mm-hmm. Consciousness is just like our soul. Everything just is. So if you judge, you are in the mind and you are literally seeing the world through, or when we judge, we are in the mind and we are seeing the world through our beliefs. And we compare the external to our belief system. And the moment it doesn't align with our belief system, we judge. That tells you itself that it's the mind stuff. When we drop the mind, we have no belief system. We just are. Mm-hmm. There is no, do you have any opinion? No, I don't. Why? You need to have an opinion or whatever, something. No, I don't need to. Why? Yeah. Because I don't judge. Opinion is judgment. It's my belief system against your belief system. And this is divorce. These are force. These are all conflicts. This is parent and child conflicts. Everything comes in the mind. So, and the third point I would make in terms of judgment is every time we judge someone, we judge ourselves. Because again, there is no one out there. Everyone and everything is a holographic projection of who we are, of our state of being as a consciousness that created the experience. So if we judge someone, we judge ourselves. And that again forces us, or should, it's a pointer to why am I judging this person? And what do I fear? It's always judgment, is always fear. It's always fear. What do I fear that makes me to judge this person? Because I tell you what, give me like any example. Okay. Let's say I go, I walk on the street and there is a homeless person, right? And let's say I look at them and I judge them. I have these thoughts about how they can live that like that, how they could allow it to happen, blah, 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 blah. What is the thought? It's a conditioning. I'm looking at myself where I am and judging that person. But really what the mind is doing, it's a projection of fear, because my deepest fear is that I end up like that. And I don't want to end up like that. So what do? I judge. It's a survival mechanism. Everything that mind does is a survival mechanism. And that's why it's really hard to see things, because it's so tricky. It's so wrapped in the mind, makes the illusion real.
Yeah.
So that's why to come out of it, we need to drop the mind. We completely need to drop the belief systems and the emotional and thought patterns we had.
Yeah, absolutely. And because that's the mind wants to make sense of things. That's its job. I mean, ultimately the mind is a tool that we were given to navigate this illusion, and it's going to want to compute things. So it's going to want to say, okay, that homeless person state is bad and I am good. There's no truth there. There's no, like you said, there is no judgment in the ultimate, in the consciousness. We formulate that in our minds. So when we are able to release that, we see the truth, which is that nothing has any greater value than another thing. And everything is a worthy experience, whether you're having the experience of being a homeless person, which has immense value in that experience and that understanding of life, versus someone who's, we might call stable, or, that it's all an illusion. But we create these judgments, which it's not a bad thing, except that it creates such distress for us, and it creates such division and a lack of, we feel like we don't understand one another when we do.
Ultimately. It is, and it creates separation, and it creates separation really for understanding ourselves better. But when we understand how the mind works and how it creates the illusion, how it keeps us in the illusion, then we are able to drop it and shift into the higher consciousness when there are no thoughts like that. It's not like you have to not to make yourself not to think those thoughts.
Yeah.
Those thoughts do not exist there, because again, you see the world through the eyes of your true self, or the consciousness, and everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. There is no judgment, and there is no judgment of others, but there is no judgment also yourself as you. So again, whenever we judge something out there, we judge ourselves. We have so much judgment conditioned into ourselves and limitations. And the world is there to remind us of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel that is remembering who we are, then we release judgment, because who we are is all one. There's no difference between you and I and this and that. Again, it's a gift. It's a gift that we have to play this game. But in reality, we're all the same thing. We're all connected. But if we were always in that state, we just always be in sort of like the higher consciousness. But we're, again, playing this game of, can we remember who we are when we've been kind of stripped of that remembrance?
Yes.
And it's a fun game until it's not, as we described. And another challenge is, so one is this judgment, but then another, and I feel like we're kind of almost like reviewing the 4 Agreements, which is a fabulous book if anyone hasn't read it. And because you mentioned something about when you don't connect with certain people, or when you don't get certain clients, or when maybe you feel rejected by a potential romantic partner, taking things personally. That lives in the mind as well, because nothing is personal. It's just literally us, moving about, walking our path. And certain people will, like you said, like certain things are for us and certain things are not. We don't have to do certain things. So sometimes when we try to force something, it's not that it's an offense or a rejection when it doesn't work out. It's just not meant for us. But we take things so personally, and it causes us great grief, right?
Yes, because again, the mind, as it has been designed, the conditioning as it has been designed, not the mind, the conditioning has been instilled in ours is we look for ourselves in others. If we do not find that, we judge or we do certain other things. You mentioned rejection. No one, never ever can someone else reject you. You can only reject yourself. So again, when someone rejects you, it may be a romantic partner or it may be a client, you've rejected yourself, because there is a fear, a sort of, that that manifested on a physical level, on a physical realm, as a rejection, as this other person rejecting you. But it's the fear you have in you that created the rejection. Everything, the consciousness travels as a light. It goes through a different, I think, 7 dimensions. And the physical reality as we know it and live it is the last one, is the deep, it's a dense, it's a very rigid. Anything that shows up in our physical reality needs to go through our metaphysical body first, which is a higher dimension, and that is our thoughts and emotions. So the whatever is in your metaphysical body projects itself and manifests itself then later in the physical reality. So your physical, it's amazing, because if you understand this, you never judge anything. You never even take any negativity from anyone, because you created it in yourself, and there is something in yourself that created it. Then it's absolutely impossible to judge it or to be worried about it or to not like it. It's like, no, you say, oh, okay, thank you for rejecting me, because, okay, what is it in me that makes me fear? What kind of belief system, like what is there that made this rejection just happen? Like there is no coincidence, nothing, not one person, not the bird that flies by, not the car that drives by, nothing is a coincidence. Everything that everyone says or tells you or do, any event that happens, is a synchronicity. People look for spiritual people sometimes like look for synchronicity. Don't look for synchronicity. Everything is a synchronicity. You just don't see it now, or you cannot translate it. And that's your work, to pay attention and to go within rather than judge and point to the outside or to the external.
Yeah. Yes. Wow. Whew. That's a powerful lesson, but it's one that we may spend this whole lifetime recognizing, because it truly does set us free when we acknowledge and can live by all the points you just made. And that's why I think it's so important to have people like you speaking to these things and inspiring these notions in people, because I think truly in a lot of ways we've lost our way. But we all have this like sneaking suspicion about what you just said. All these things I think innately will resonate with us, because again, it's the ultimate truth. And that resides within us. So I appreciate you for speaking this. And I love having this conversation. Obviously, I'm very excited about it and having a great time, because these are the big concepts that I just love talking about. It's because it's what is the true nature of things. And with that said, I want to do a little side note before we kind of start wrapping things up, because I would love for you to offer like a last few points about how people can begin to move from this, fixation on the mind and the body into this state that's more of ease, and to have more of, things happen more seamlessly. I just want to say back to our point of, we were discussing about spiritual awakenings, and that if somebody is in that place where, Daniela found herself quite a few years ago, where I found myself earlier this year, there's so many resources, and I encourage people to reach out. Of course, if you're having significant mental struggles or physical ailments, illness, seek out professional help, right? You can seek out a therapist such as myself that is spiritually based, that might be able to help you through this if you have an inclination that it's awakening based. But if you're having any sort of physical struggles, also seek out professional medical help, because it, as Daniela would say, it's just because it's a mental construct doesn't mean it's not real in our body if we believe it in our mind. because that's the way it works.
It always is real.
Yeah.
It always is real. So I don't want people think it's not real. No,
Yeah.
but again, what I said, it's like it does show up and in a physical reality as a physical illness. I had clients with cancer. I had clients with thyroid issues, like with chronic disease. So absolutely. But if you were at the point where like you checked everything, like, yeah, I've been to the doctor. Yeah, I had prescription. I have this. And my doctor just tells, well, I don't know, it's just this or this. And they cannot help you anymore. Then it may be the awakening. And actually, every depression and anxiety, I have to say that because it's working, it is a push. It may be not an awakening, but it is a push to awakening.
Yes.
It is a push for yourself to do things differently, to get out of the fear, to go inward. So podcasts like these, books, absolutely, and coaches like you really, really are helpful to help.
And people can reach out to you as well to work with you, because you offer, this is what you do with your clients.
Yes, I do. Again, those who resonate, they can feel free to contact me on my website, danielassulek.com. And usually people, when reach out to me, they're ready, because and then they shift really fast, because it's like they are ready. So it's but if you are in that kind of like a center of the dark night of the soul, that was your question, I think, because Whitney, you asked me a question like, what can people do if they're in the dark night of the soul, right?
Yeah,
like
or just when they're trying to move from that space of being like in their mental energy and in their body, how can they begin that process of moving more into their being?
Okay, so I think this will help everyone, regardless of where they are. Because even when you are in the dark night of the soul or having these symptoms, it doesn't help when you're in the mind, because you are trying to figure it out. Here's the thing: the mind cannot ever figure it out, because the mind is a result of the consciousness. It's a physical projection of the consciousness, and it is not capable of figuring out. So, as you said, Whitney, going or shifting from the mind into the body is the key. So if you can literally do any, I would say the most powerful thing that one can do is be present. Be present with what is. Be present where you are. You may try different rituals, but be where you are and just look around yourself, not trying to think about what is going on. Just for me, I love nature, whether it was in the past or now. Going outside, you go outside and just look at the trees, look at the birds, look at the grass, look at the clouds, and the mind will be like, well, this is a kind of waste of time. Yeah, it's not. That's your portal. That's your healing. And the more you do it, the better you will feel, because the mind wants to understand, for example, the awakening. No, it cannot. There can be some pointers, but to be honest, you will fully understand the awakening and all the symptoms and everything you go through once you're through it. once you go through it, then you look back and like, oh wow, okay, got it. And it's because it has to be experienced. The consciousness is what experiences things. The mind is logic. Awakening is not logical. A lot of stuff that I do, you do, people go through, is not based on logic. And trying to apply logic to it actually worsens the symptoms, because we want to be out of it. We want to feel better, but we want to do something. Just be where you are. A lot of time really accepting it. Like, I remember my toughest times when when it's like, I don't want to go through this. This is too painful. Accepting it, that it is a painful, and letting go would be which is acceptance, letting go of the resistance of not wanting to go through it. And that's where the trust comes. It's like, okay, at some point, probably, I don't know if you had experience, but me, definitely, I had to tell myself, okay, I give up. Yeah. I give up resistance. I give up.
You surrender.
Knowing, I give up and the need of knowing what's going to happen. I give up what's happening. I give up the need to understand. I just give up. Okay, whatever needs to happen, okay, I allow it to happen. And that shifted things. In 2 or 3 days, I was like, oh, wow, okay, now I feel better. Because the resistance is in the mind. The resistance creates more resistance, because the mind wants to keep status quo. The mind knows nothing but our old self, our history, our personality, our gender, our experience, our jobs, the people in our lives, like, right? And it doesn't know the future. Awakening and all this stuff is completely unknown to it, so it holds on to it. So it's your job to drop the mind and surrender. Like, yeah, okay, I give up. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And then take the next step, and then to take the next step, and to take the next step.
Yeah. And then from there, as when you surrender, something you shared with me, Daniela, when we talked, that was helpful, is you said that after you surrender, you need to trust that these emotions just need to go through you. Things are getting out of your system as you surrender. Your system sort of clearing of the metaphysical body. And that was really important for me to hear, because I could just kind of let go and trust, not say like, oh my gosh, why is my heart beating fast? Why am I shaking? Why? It's just clearing. It's energy clearing. And when energy leaves you, it's going to have, because we are energy. So there's going to be a shift in our energetic field. So it does take a lot of surrender and trust to, and then once you surrender, it passes, and then you feel.
Yes. So I would give an example of, so people can really understand what's going on. It's like, if you have it's energy in motion that needs to kind of play itself out. So let's say you have there is a door, right? And you have a door in your room, or in your closet, and now you take the door and you tear it out and you throw it on the floor. It's what the door will does, it will do a lot of noise, bang, 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 and it like goes down, up and down, bam, 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 bam. That's awakening. That's ascension. And it goes, this is a simple analogy, but it goes in a cycle. But in like when you are in one cycle, literally what's happening is your old and emotional patterns are switching, are breaking, are disappearing, are changing. So that energy, and they carry certain energetical blueprint in your metaphysical body. That blueprint, that energy needs to play out. It needs to go through your system and out. When we don't want to do it, it's like, no, I don't. We really make it harder for us. So letting go and knowing that, oh, okay, we let the energy. Yeah, okay, you have a headache. So what? Yeah, okay, you feel bad. So what? But I shouldn't. Well, but that should is causing the resistance. Who said you should not? Because you want to be a superhero, supermom, super worker. No. So you're crying. So what? Like allowing ourselves to be And that's acceptance. Allow yourself to go through whatever you are going through. Okay, so you're going through tough times. Okay. And it actually you can apply to anything. Like when I had COVID earlier this year, and
you and me both.
Yeah, and I had huge symptoms, and like I was in a bed, and I'm like, okay, I was ready to die. I'm like, okay, you know, everything was hurting, and I'm like, yeah, well, this was fun. Like seriously, I completely surrendered that I'm in the bed, and like my body knows what to do, and I got COVID for a reason, and that's it. And I stopped. I never fight any illness, by the way. I never fight a headache. I just allow it to go through my body, and it shifts. The energy shifts so fast. So this is the same. Again, to what you said, if you have symptoms, if you have medical emergency, like go check with your doctor. But if your doctor said, well, okay, everything looks fine, just keep doing whatever you've been doing, then surrender to that, and especially if you have a hinge that it's actually awakening, those are ascension symptoms, then let go and allow the energy to play out. And then you will have maybe a few weeks, few months good, and then another shift will happen, because it's continuous, you know. It's here's the thing. Yeah, it's like here's the thing. It has to come. It's like you know, peeling of the onion, right? Like it cannot happen at once. Our physical bodies could not take it, so we will literally die. Like the energy will be too strong. So that's why these shifts happen kind of in a cycles, and layers, layer. And every time you are a different person with a different belief system, and you shift.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just a single, you know, lifetime process that is an infinite process, because life is infinite, energy is infinite. And so wherever, this is just one little snippet of a lifetime or lifetimes of this.
I can tell you that, well, I'm not a person that I was 5 years ago, and I'm not a person that I was 1 year ago, and I'm not a person who I was 1 week ago. Like that, like it shifts, it is shifting so fast that, and I don't know what to expect, because every time I'm like, wow, okay, I'm probably done, because things are just happening, things are just in the flow. And then I have another spiritual experience, remembering who I am beyond. So it's just fascinating process.
And it's what keeps things exciting.
Yes.
Board,
yes.
Ship Earth. Wow. Yes. Well, Daniela, this was such an incredible conversation. I feel like I'm out in the cosmos, in, you know, the esoterics, and I just love it. So Thank you for being on the show and for sharing with us about your work and your views and your understanding, because it's so valuable and it's so needed. And I believe exactly who needs to hear it is going to hear this. And I hope it's a lot of people, because I think more and more people are coming to these understandings and needing this sort of kind of things to click. So thank you for being a part of people's progress and evolution. And your website, people can find you there to work with you. It will be in the show notes.
Yes,
and any other so much links and ways to connect with you. So thank you again. I would love to have you back again, because I feel like we could talk a whole other 2 hours. So
yeah, I could talk for 1 week.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me with me.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.